In this video of Exploring York, we will look at the historic area and street of Hungate. Hungate is a street in the city centre of York and what we also now call the area surrounding it. The street itself was never as well known as some of the more central roads running through the heart of the city centre, and the lower lying area closer to the River Foss was predominantly marshland with very little development up until the first half of the 19th century. So where is Hungate and what are its boundaries? The Hungate area was more broadly at one time defined by its westerly boundary with Fossgate as well as St Saviour Gate to the north. From this, the street of Hungate itself ran south-east from St Saviour Gate, where a small portion of the street still survives from the corner of St Saviour's Church, and it eventually stopped just before reaching the northern bank of the River Foss. These are today the areas of greatest development, principally with the creation of Stonebow, a new road created in the 1950s to link pavement with Peason Green heading towards Layerthorpe Bridge, which ultimately cut Hungate Road in two. Prior to Stonebow being set out, you had to come west into the city centre via Peason Green and then take a sharp 90-degree turn north onto St Saviour Gate to continue your journey onto Collier Gate and eventually to pavement. Hungate may have come from the words hund, meaning hound, and gata, meaning gate, though there's no evidence that the king had hounds kept in this area, notwithstanding the proximity to the King's Pool nearby, though there is not necessarily a connection here in name alone. Hungate was a slum by the end of the 15th century, though development towards its more urban fringes on Peason Green and Fossgate saw the most growth and investment prior to the establishment of the short-lived York Union Gas Works in the low-lying area of Hungate on the bank of the River Foss. The post-population boom of the 1840s and 50s saw a substantial amount of poor quality housing being built on the former marshland here in Hungate and also in Layerthorpe. The high-density Hungate housing scheme was in such a bad state that by 1901 it was selected as one of the key areas covered by Benjamin Seaborn Rowntree's study, Poverty, a Study of Town Life. A survey of census records has since led to an understanding that in fact some professional workers were living here as well as those on lower incomes, challenging this notion of the area being correctly identified as a slum. But the predominant cultural memory of this area is that it was very impoverished. By 1936, the old housing blocks were cleared and demolished, but urban renewal is a recurring theme of Hungate, where as of 2005, York City Council has permitted the undertaking of an ongoing major development of the Hungate area between Lend-Lease and the Evans Property Group. The site has planning approval for a mix of office, retail and residential uses and will be set within a framework of city squares and green spaces. There is a community centre with a cafe already here, patiently waiting for the public square setting to be completed. Residential development began in 2009 and much of this has been completed, but the site in its broader curtilage remains unfinished in 2023. Progress is very slow, and there are no interpretation boards or public notices on site to explain what is happening with these central unfinished spaces. Presumably, these areas will be city gardens and the green spaces. I have very vague memories of going on a college field trip here as an A-level archaeology student sometime after excavations commenced in 2006 and 2007. Over the course of the dig, which ended sometime in 2011, York Archaeological Trust had welcomed 23,000 visitors to this site and had uncovered a variety of artefacts dating back to the Roman period. Time Team even came here to film a special programme about the Vikings. The residential developments themselves already feel and look dated, some of which have been occupied now for 20 years. Those which are faced solely in brick, such as Bellaby Court and the St John's University building, appear most in keeping with the riverside heritage which they overlook on one side. However, those overlooking the nature reserve are completely surpassed in design quality by the new offices for Hiscox Insurance, which were opened at the edge of the development along Stonebow in December 2015, winning a York Design Award. There is a bridge which links Navigation Road with the Hungate development, which is a very pleasant addition to the riverside's built environment. This will be the subject of another video. I'll be looking at York's bridges, but it's worth showing here because I feel the thing that the residential developments in Hungate do best are to conceal the embarrassment of their partially underdeveloped core. A nature reserve on Foss View feels more like the result of a tick-boxing exercise than anything else, though to be fair, I'm not sure exactly how much of this has to do with the Hungate development directly. The reserve is inaccessible by design even to Hungate residents, and there is only a short walk with very basic information about wildlife, offering limited views of the River Foss behind a dense bank of trees. Although far from the most historic and attractive area within the city walls, Hungate has its place as a small footnote in a huge local narrative and is easily overlooked. It's a shame that it sits like a dead weight between some of the more interesting navigational routes, such as the River Foss and Stonebow. Hungate has seen more dramatic change in the past 2 centuries than it has done in double or triple that time alone. It once had 2 churches and a nearby priory, both of which have long gone, and no above-ground traces remain of these buildings. In fact, very little trace of anything remains because there was very little of great significance built here for much of York's history. In this sense, Hungate for me sticks out like a sore thumb, and why I have essentially made this video about it. Let me know what other areas of York you would like me to explore in future videos, and I'll add these to my growing list, along with the rivers, the river bridges, and the city walls videos which I intend to make. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.